Hi class, this is course 3, lesson 63, rational numbers, non-terminating decimals and percents, and fractions with negative exponents. Okay, so this first two problems on the first section, rational numbers, non-terminating decimals and percents. Express 2/3 as an equivalent fraction and percent. Well, to write 2/3 as a fraction, you would divide. So to get a fraction, divide. And we're going to put 3 into 2, and we're going to have to get some decimals here. So decimal 6, 18, subtract 2, put a 0, 6, 18. Okay, so I can tell that this is repeating. So I'm going to write this as decimal point 6 with the repetitive bar over the 6. That's my equivalent fraction. Now as a percent, we need to take the fraction and multiply that times 100% and then divide. Then divide. Okay, so now we have 200 divided by 3. So over here, I'm going to write 3 into 200. That'd be 6, 18, add a decimal, 0. Okay, at this point, what I want you to do, and I guess I shouldn't have had that, I should not have done that step. When you get to the end of a fraction, when you're doing the division to make a percent. Okay, so we have 66%, but we have this remainder down here. So we're going to put this up here as the fractional part out of our denominator. So this is 66 and 2/3%. This 2/3 is the same thing as that 0.6 repeating, which is what we would have if we kept going. It's just better, it looks better to write it as the fractional part, okay? So if you have a repeating fraction, a repeating decimal, when you're making it into a percent, multiply your fraction times 100% and then do the division in the whole numbers, and then write the decimal part or the remainder part as a fraction, please. To express 16 and 2/3% as a reduced fraction and as a decimal, we need to work this process backwards. What we need to do here is to make a reduced fraction, we need to make this into an improper fraction first. So 3 times 16 is 48, plus the 2 is 50/3, and then we're going to divide that by 100 because percent means out of 100. So this problem is really 50/3 times 1 over 100, which is 1/216. Okay, now as a decimal, you can divide the 6 into the 1 if you'd like. 6 goes into 1 how many times? Let's see, 1, 41, 6, 36, and then we'd have this 6 that just keeps going. So this becomes 0.16 with a repetitive bar. Now, you maybe saw that right here, because if you know that that fraction 2/3 means a repeating 6, then you could look at this as 1666666, move the decimal 2 places to the left, and you end up with 0.16 repeating. Okay, so a couple different ways or different thoughts that you could switch between fraction, decimal, and percents. Now, Let's talk about negative exponents. This right here is review. Okay, we know that if you have a negative exponent, it really means we're writing the reciprocal of whatever our base is to a positive power. Okay, so it was 3 over 1, now it's 1 over 3 cubed, which would be 1 over 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. This problem here, x to the negative 1 power, is just 1 over x. That 1 I don't need to write because it's already implied. So what happens when we have fractions as our base to a negative power? Well, it's the same thing, the same concept. It's making its reciprocal to the same power, to the positive power. So if the number is 1/3, I need to take its reciprocal. So the reciprocal would be 3 1s, and that is to the positive second power. So now I end up with just the number 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. If you're feeling like you know what you might want to do here, pause the video and see if you're right. The base here is 1/4 to the negative 2 power. So we're going to take the reciprocal of the base, making that 4 1s to the second power, which is just 4 squared, which is 16. This down here, 4/5 to the negative first power, is the base, 4/5, so take the reciprocal to the positive power. So 4/5 to the negative 1 power is just the fraction 5/4. Okay, hopefully these negative exponents aren't as tricky as the first time you went through them. Be sure to ask plenty of questions on this concept though. Okay, with that, I will see you in class.